The sky above cracked open like glass. Red lightning flashed across the strange alien sky. Acid rain poured down like fire. Jack ran as fast as he could through the sharp rocks, his boots slipping on the wet ground. His ship had crashed hours ago. His radio was broken. No one was coming for him. Then he saw it, a small dark hole in the side of a cliff. A cave. Jack didn't think twice. He jumped into the cave just as a wave of toxic rain splashed behind him. Inside, it was cold, damp, and completely dark. He caught his breath. "Well," he muttered, "at least I'm alive." He turned on the flashlight from his wristband. The beam shook as he raised his arm. The walls were rough and wet. Strange symbols were scratched into the stone, but they were old, maybe forgotten. Then, he heard something. It was soft. A quiet whimper, like a child crying. Jack froze. His heart pounded in his ears. He aimed his light deeper into the cave. A shape moved, fast. Then another sound. Breathing. Ragged. Weak. Jack raised his hands. "Hey," he said gently. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm just trying to stay alive." Silence. He stepped forward slowly, the light still pointed downward. And then he saw her. A woman, not human. She had deep violet skin and glowing silver eyes. Her clothes were torn, just scraps wrapped around her thin frame. Her body trembled, not from fear, but cold and hunger. Beside her were two small alien children, curled up and barely breathing. She growled low, like a wounded animal. She held out a broken, rusted knife. Her hands shook. Jack didn't move. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe. I won't take anything. I have some food." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" Jack knelt slowly. "Because your kids are dying." He opened his pack carefully and pulled out a sealed protein bar and a small water pouch. He slid them across the ground. The woman didn't trust him. She looked at the food, then at her children. One of the children opened his eyes. He was so thin. His bones showed through his skin. He reached out for the water. The woman watched, then dropped the knife. She crawled forward and helped her son drink. She broke the bar in half, giving each child a piece. They chewed slowly, as if they had forgotten what food tasted like. Jack sat down a few feet away. "What's your name?" he asked. She didn't answer. He waited. After a long silence, she spoke. "Skara." Jack smiled gently. "I'm Jack." One of the children coughed hard, then leaned against her, her arms wrapped around them both. Skara looked at Jack. "You not afraid of me?" He shook his head. "Should I be?" "I am enemy to your kind." Jack frowned. "I don't care. You're a mother. They're just kids. No one deserves to die like this." She looked at him with wide, tired eyes, then she whispered, "They burned our village. My mate, he died. I ran. We have nothing. Just this cave." Jack felt his chest tighten. He looked at the shivering children, barely, older than toddlers. He took off his jacket and laid it across them. "They need warmth." Skara stared at him, confused. "Why, do you help?" Jack shrugged. "Because no one helped me once. I know what it feels like to be alone." The rain outside roared louder. The acid hissed as it hit the rocks. But inside the cave, something began to change. Skara slowly lowered her guard. She sat down closer to Jack, still keeping her children in her arms. "If you stay, they may come." "Who?" Jack asked. "Hunters," she whispered. "They chase us. They say I belong to them." Jack's jaw clenched. "Not anymore." Skara looked at him, her eyes soft but filled with pain. "You are strange, human." Jack smiled a little. "You have no idea." The flashlight flickered. The storm outside kept raging. But in that cave, something new had started. A fragile thread of trust. a moment of peace in the middle of fear. Skara looked at her sleeping children, then back at the human who gave them warmth, food, and hope. She didn't know if he would stay. She didn't know if tomorrow would bring more pain. But tonight, someone had chosen to care. And for the first time in a long time, Skara let herself hope. The storm outside had finally faded. Only soft dripping echoed from the rocks. But inside the cave, the air was heavy, not just from dampness, but from the unspoken pain between them. Skara sat beside the sleeping children. Their breathing was slow, weak, but steady now. Jack had stayed awake most of the night, feeding the small fire he had built using broken cave wood and scraps from his crashed gear. He watched Skara in the faint orange light. Her back was straight, her eyes far away. Finally, she spoke without looking at him. "You don't understand what I am." Jack shifted slightly. "Then tell me." She looked at him, truly looked for the first time. "I was never meant to be a mother," she said. "My people breed in labs. We are made, not born." Jack frowned. "But your children, I stole them," she said coldly. His breath caught. "I was bred to serve, strong, silent, obedient. But when I saw those babies inside the factory, crying, unwanted, marked for testing, something inside me broke." She touched one of the children's faces gently. "I ran, took them, hid for months, lived like an animal. Everyone said they're not really mine, but they are." Jack sat quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You did something no one else would. That makes you more of a mother than most." Skara blinked. Her silver eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "They will never stop hunting me. They say I stole government property." Jack's face darkened. "They're not property. They're children." She nodded slowly. "I found this cave. During the first snow. It has hidden vents. Keeps the smell down. I've been moving from one hole to another ever since, but they're getting sicker. I couldn't find enough food. They're too weak to run now." Jack pulled out a folded med patch from his supply kit and gently placed it on the younger child's chest. Skara watched his careful hands. "No one from your kind ever touched us without hurting," she whispered. "I'm not like them," Jack replied simply. Then in a quiet voice she asked, "Why?" Jack stared into the fire for a moment. "Because someone once told me, if you can help, then you must. My brother died on a colony world while people walked past him. Starving, alone. I couldn't save him, but maybe I can save them." Skara turned her head quickly, hiding her face, but Jack saw her shoulders shake. She wiped her eyes. "You're strange, human." He smiled. "You already said that." They both laughed, soft, awkward laughter, but it broke something. The cold wall between them melted a little. Suddenly, the older child coughed harshly. Jack moved over quickly. "He needs real medicine. I have a crash beacon. I can call my team." Skara's eyes widened in fear. "No, if others come, they'll take us." "They won't. I crashed far from known patrols. My crew isn't military. They're miners, mechanics. People like me." She hesitated, then nodded once. "I'll need to leave the cave. The beacon's range is weak inside. I'll go with you." Jack looked surprised. "You sure? If something happens to you, they'll never find us." He didn't argue. She was right. He stood and checked his gear. Before leaving, he turned and asked, "If we make it out, if they come and help, what do you want then?" She didn't answer right away, then she said, voice soft, "A warm place, a roof, safety, someone who won't run away." Jack gave her a long, thoughtful look. "Then let's make sure you get it." They stepped out of the cave together, under a pale sky filled with distant stars. But none of those stars shined as brightly as the fire of survival burning in the heart of a mother, and the kindness of a human stranger who had no reason to care, but did anyway. The sun had barely touched the sky when Jack returned to the cave. His boots were soaked, his jacket was torn at the sleeve, but in his hand, clutched tightly, was the activated beacon. "I did it," he said between breaths. "Signals out. Now we wait." Skara said nothing. She was too focused on her child. His fever had returned. She placed a cool cloth over his head, her movements gentle and tired. Jack crouched beside her. "They'll come, I promise." Skara glanced at him, then back at her child. "We don't have much time." Jack nodded grimly. "That's why I also set up traps around the cave. Motion wires, sensors. If anyone approaches, I'll know." But even as he said the words, something didn't feel right. The air had changed. It was still, too still. No birds, no wind, no sound. Suddenly, click. A soft beep from Jack's wristband. Motion detected. Jack froze. He looked at Skara. She was already moving, grabbing the children and pulling them deeper into the shadows of the cave. "How many?" she whispered. Jack checked the sensor. 2, no, 3 life forms. Fast, coming straight this way. Skara's face turned pale. "Hunters." She reached for a small rusted blade, the same one she had once pointed at Jack. Jack grabbed his blaster. "Let me handle this," she hesitated. "They are not like others. They do not speak. They shoot first, and they know this cave." "How?" Her voice shook. It was theirs. Long ago, before the war. Footsteps echoed at the mouth of the cave. Jack raised his blaster, eyes scanning the dark. Then, a loud crack. A net fired from the shadows. Metal cables shot toward them like snakes. Jack rolled, pulling Skara down. The net missed by inches. Slamming into the wall behind, figures appeared, tall, armored, masked, eyes glowing red. Hunters. No words. No mercy. The lead hunter raised a rifle. Jack fired first, blast hitting the mask and knocking one back. Skara grabbed a sharp rock and stabbed another in the leg. It roared, grabbing her by the arm. Jack lunged, slamming the butt of his blaster into the creature's helmet. "Let her go." The hunter fell and Skara ran back to the children, but the third one was already standing in front of them, his weapon pointed at her son. "No," she screamed, but before the shot could be fired, boom. The trap Jack had set at the entrance exploded. A shockwave burst that knocked the hunter sideways and buried him under rubble. Dust filled the cave. Everyone coughed, the air thick with smoke. Then, silence again. 3 hunters. All down. For now. Jack dropped to his knees, panting. His hands were cut, one arm burned from the blast. Skara crawled to him. "You're hurt." "I've had worse," he groaned. "Is everyone okay?" She nodded. "Your traps saved us." He smiled faintly. "Told you they'd work." She looked at him differently now. Her eyes weren't full of fear, but something else. Something warmer, grateful, awed. "I've never seen a human fight for someone not their own," she said quietly. Jack winced and leaned against the wall. Maybe it's time someone did. She helped him sit upright, wrapping a cloth around his bleeding hand. The children came close, eyes wide. Jack looked at them and said gently, "You're safe now. I won't let anyone take you." The boy, barely able to speak, whispered, "Father." Jack's eyes widened. Skara gasped softly. The word echoed in the silent cave like a promise. Jack reached out, brushing the boy's hair. "If you'll have me, I'll be whatever you need." Skara's lip trembled. "You have no idea what that means in my culture." He smiled. "Then teach me." Outside, a distant light blinked in the sky. The beacon had worked. Help was coming. But, deep inside the cave, something stronger had already arrived. Hope. The air in the cave was thick with smoke and silence. Broken weapons, cracked helmets, and blood stained the ground. Jack sat against the wall, still breathing heavily. His burned arm throbbed, but his eyes never left the mouth of the cave. Skara sat near him, cradling the children in her arms. One of them, her youngest, had fallen into a fevered sleep. The other clung to her side, wide-eyed and silent. "They'll send more," Skara whispered. Jack nodded. "I know. I can't run anymore," she said, voice trembling. "Not with the children. Not with their sickness." Jack looked at her. "Then we don't run." Her eyes widened. "Then we die?" "No," he said. "We fight." He pulled out a small silver chip from his belt, a signal jammer. "I didn't want to use this yet. It blocks tracking signals and shuts down enemy comms, but only for a few hours." Skara blinked. "That's enough?" Jack gave a tired smile. "Enough to finish what they started." Suddenly, a loud thud. The ground trembled. Then another thud, heavier, closer. Jack stood. They brought a mech. Skara stood too, holding her child close. "They're done playing." Jack turned to her. "You stay hidden in the back, guard them no matter what happens." She grabbed his wrist. "You can't fight them alone." Jack looked down at her hand. "I'm not alone." They shared a look, brief, fierce, unspoken. He handed her a spare blaster. "It only has 4 shots." "Then I won't miss." A metallic growl echoed into the cave. The mech had arrived. It stepped into view. Tall, silver, glowing with red light. A hunter rode inside, aiming a pulse cannon. The cave shook with every step it took. Jack didn't wait. He jumped forward, firing, at the mech's legs. Sparks flew, but the mech kept moving. The hunter laughed from inside. "Foolish human." Skara hid behind a rock wall with her children, watching through a crack. Her hands shook, but she held the blaster firm. Jack rolled as the pulse cannon fired, a massive blue blast tearing through rock. He landed hard, coughing from the dust. He reached into his belt, a plasma grenade. He activated it, then ran straight, toward the mech. "No!" Skara screamed. The hunter aimed, fired. Jack jumped, and threw the grenade. Boom! The explosion sent the mech flying sideways. The hunter inside screamed, but Jack didn't move. He lay still. Skara ran to him, kneeling at his side. "Jack! Jack!" His chest rose slowly, eyes opened, barely. "Still here," he said with a weak grin. "You're hurt," she cried. "So bad," he coughed. "Is it dead?" She turned. What was left of the mech smoldered in the rubble. "Yes." He smiled again. "Good." She wiped his face with her sleeve, tears falling from her eyes. "I can't lose you," she whispered. He looked at her, her silver eyes glowing with fear and something more. "You won't," he said. "Not yet." Footsteps came from the cave's entrance. Skara turned, aiming the blaster. A soft voice called out, "Jack, it's us." Human voices. Jack's rescue team. 2 men and a woman in brown gear rushed in, holding medkits and scanners. "Hold still, buddy," one said, kneeling beside him. "You look like death." Jack laughed weakly. "I feel worse." The female medic looked at Skara and her children. Her eyes widened. "Who are they?" Jack looked at her. His voice cracked, but it was clear. "My family." Everyone froze. Skara's mouth opened slightly. She looked at him, unsure, but Jack nodded to her. "You're not running anymore. You're coming home." The medic blinked. "Captain's not going to like this." Jack stared at her. "Then find a new captain." The team got to work. They patched Jack's burns and gave medicine to the children. One of them smiled weakly as the fever began to fade. Skara sat beside Jack, never letting go of his hand. In the chaos, she had found peace. In fear, she had found strength. In a human, she had found something she never expected, a reason to believe. The sun rose gently over the ruined valley outside the cave. Birds chirped in the alien trees. Steam rose from the wet rocks. It was the first peaceful morning in many days. Inside the cave, Jack lay on a soft bedding made from cloaks and blankets. His burns were healing, thanks to the med patches from his team. His chest rose and fell calmly now. Beside him, Skara sat quietly, watching his face. She had cleaned the blood from his hands. She had stitched the torn jacket he refused to throw away, and now she was just waiting. Her children slept beside the fire. Their fever was gone. Their cheeks had color again. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running. For the first time, she wasn't alone. Jack's eyes fluttered open. Skara leaned over. "You're awake." He gave a small smile. "Couldn't leave you alone with my ugly face forever." She smiled too, softly. "You fought death and made jokes." "I'm good at both," he said, sitting up slowly. "Where's my blaster?" She raised an eyebrow. "You're not going anywhere." "Not yet," he admitted, then looked around the cave. "It's warm now. Feels different." "It is," she said. "Because you stayed." He turned to her. Their eyes met. A long silence. Then, Jack asked, voice low, "Do you regret saving me?" Skara shook her head slowly. "No. I only regret not meeting you sooner." Jack looked down at the ground. His hand trembled slightly. "I have to ask you something," he said. "And it's not because I feel sorry for you, or because I think you're weak. It's because I've never felt something like this before." She tilted her head. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "Skara, if I could choose anyone in this galaxy to be by my side, to build a home with, to fight for, to protect, it would be you." She blinked, stunned. "I know it's strange," he went on. "We're different. We come from two different worlds. But when I look at you, I don't see alien. I see family." Skara's voice caught. "Jack." He reached for her hand. "Will you have me?" he whispered. "Not just as a protector, but as a partner, as a husband. I know your people do it differently, but—" He stopped. She was already crying. Tears ran down her cheeks. Quiet. Soft. She nodded. "Yes." Jack's heart skipped. "Yes?" he repeated. Skara smiled, a smile filled with light and sadness, and hope. "You gave my children food. You gave me warmth. You risked your life. You never asked for anything in return. You are already their father. You became my heart without even asking." Jack chuckled gently. "So, that's a yes?" "Yes, Jack," she said. "Yes, I will be your mate. Your wife. Whatever your people call it. I will walk with you." They leaned forward, resting, their foreheads together, eyes closed. A soft voice broke the moment. "Mommy," whispered the little girl, eyes wide and sleepy. "Why are you crying?" Skara turned, still smiling. "Because something beautiful just happened." Jack reached for the child and lifted her gently onto his lap. "Come here, sweetheart," he said. She wrapped her arms around him, trusting and warm. The boy crawled over next, and Jack hugged them both. "You're my kids now," he said softly, "if that's okay." They nodded, eyes full of wonder. Skara sat beside them, holding Jack's hand tightly. The human rescue team stood at a distance, watching. They didn't interrupt. The team leader whispered, "He really meant it." The medic nodded. He chose them. Later that day, they left the cave together, Jack, Skara, and the two children. Not as survivors, but as something stronger. A family. The transport ship touched down on a quiet green world, far from war, from bounty hunters, from pain. Jack stepped out first, helping Skara down the ramp. She held her youngest child in her arms. The older one walked beside Jack, holding his hand tightly. This was not Earth, but it was home now. An old human colony, forgotten after a mining failure, had become a refuge for outcasts. Now Jack's team had brought them here, together. The wind was soft. The sky was blue with two suns, The land was broken. The buildings were half crumbled. The roads cracked. But Sakara saw something else. She saw possibility. "This place," she whispered. "It's not much." Jack smiled. "It's perfect." The first few days were hard. There was no power grid, no clean water, no tools except what Jack's team could salvage from their ship. But every morning Jack rose early and worked with his hands. He rebuilt doors, repaired walls, cut down dead trees and built a fence around a small house. Every evening Sakara cooked what they found, roots, seeds, wild vegetables, and sang songs from her lost people to calm the children. One night, Jack came home with blisters on his fingers. He dropped his tool belt at the door. Sakara met him with a bowl of stew. He blinked in surprise. "Smells amazing." "I found a spice bush," she said. "Tasted strange." "Good strange." He grinned. "Everything tastes better when you make it." She sat beside him, tired but glowing. The children were already asleep. She looked around their small, newly built home. 4 walls, a roof, a fire pit. "It's not much," she said again. Jack looked at her. "It's everything," he said. They sat in silence, warm and full. But peace didn't last forever. One morning, while Jack was working on the water pump, the motion alarm beeped. He froze, then saw the blinking signal. "Someone's coming," he said. Sakara looked up from the garden patch. She was digging. Who? Jack didn't know. He read the scanner again. 2, maybe 3 small ships, not military, but not friendly either. She stood quickly. Could they have tracked us? Jack narrowed his eyes. Maybe not you, maybe me. He thought for a moment, then grabbed his radio. "I'm calling the others. We'll defend this place if we must." "No," Sakara said. "We're not running this time. We built this together. It's ours." Jack looked at her, proud and amazed. "You sound like a real colonist now." She gave him a small smirk. "I'm learning from the best." By afternoon, the ships landed in the far field. Jack and 3 others stood ready with blasters and shields. But the figures who stepped out weren't bounty hunters. They were families, half human, half alien, lost travelers, refugees, survivors. One man stepped forward. His voice cracked as he said, "We heard what you did. We want to stay, to help build." Jack lowered his weapon, then smiled. "You're welcome here." Later that night, under the starlit sky, Sakara stood beside Jack and looked over the land. More lights now twinkled across the small valley. More voices filled the air. Laughter, music, life. She reached for Jack's hand. "Look what we made from ruins." He squeezed her hand gently. "We didn't just survive, we started again." The children ran past them, chasing firebugs and shouting in joy. Sakara wiped a tear from her eye. "Do you think one day we'll be forgotten?" Jack shook his head. "No, one day they'll tell stories, not of war, but of this place, of a mother who hid in a cave, and a man who stayed." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "And of a love," she whispered, "that began with a storm." The new village was alive. Children's laughter echoed through the rebuilt houses. Lights flickered warmly under the twin suns. Crops grew in neat rows, the fences stood strong. And in the center of it all, Jack, Sakara, and their children were no longer strangers. They were home, but peace never comes without a final test. It began one morning as a silver diplomatic shuttle landed at the edge of the valley. Sakara stood still, her breath caught in her throat. She recognized the symbols painted on the side, her old empire, the same that once branded her a thief, a traitor, the same that called her children unauthorized property. Jack stood beside her, hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone," Sakara whispered. "If they take me, take the children and run." "No," Jack said firmly. "We don't run anymore, not ever again." The shuttle opened with a hiss. A tall alien woman in ceremonial robes stepped forward, flanked by 2 guards. She held a scroll in her clawed hand, her expression unreadable. She stopped in front of Sakara. "You are Sakara of the Bio-Class Division. You fled your assignment. You stole genetic units." Sakara stood tall, voice clear. "I gave them a life. I gave them love. Something your empire never would." Jack stepped forward. "They're my children now, and this is her home." The alien official raised the scroll. "I do not come to take. I come to witness." Everyone around them went still. "After investigation," the alien said slowly, "we found your units no longer respond to Empire tracking. Their code was erased, their minds and shaped by care." She looked directly at Jack. "You changed their nature. Human influence." Jack didn't flinch. "Is that a problem?" The official paused and then shook her head. "No, it is a miracle." Gasps spread across the villagers. She turned back to Sakara. "Though your actions broke every law, you created something our empire has never known. True family. And we were sent here not to punish, but to learn." Sakara's knees almost gave out. Jack caught her. "You mean, we're free?" she whispered. The official nodded. "We offer not chains, but recognition." She unrolled the scroll. It named Sakara as the legal guardian of the children. It listed Jack as their father by bond. Tears rolled down Sakara's face. Jack pulled her close, smiling through his own. One of the guards stepped forward. He removed his helmet and placed a small glowing badge into Sakara's hand. "Should your family ever need protection, call us." For the first time in her life, Sakara didn't feel hunted. She felt seen. The shuttle left quietly, leaving behind more than papers. It left behind peace. That night, the village celebrated. Fires lit up the hills. Music played from homemade drums and flutes. Children danced. Humans and aliens shared food and stories. Sakara sat beside Jack on a handmade wooden bench, her head resting on his shoulder. The stars above sparkled brighter than ever. The 2 children ran up, giggling. "Papa, Mama, come dance," Jack laughed. "Dance? Me? I have 2 left feet." "Then use both." Sakara teased, standing up and pulling him toward the fire. They danced under the stars, awkward, silly, and free. Villagers watched them with smiles. One old woman whispered, "That human, he didn't just save her. He saved all of us." Later, that night as the village slept, Jack tucked the children into bed. He returned outside and found Sakara watching the sky. She didn't say anything. Jack walked up beside her and took her hand. She finally whispered, "Why did you stay that first night?" Jack looked at her with soft eyes. "Because I saw a mother fighting to survive, and something in me said, 'Don't walk away.'" She leaned into him, whispering, "You weren't chosen by blood, but you were chosen by heart." Jack kissed her forehead. "And I choose you." Again. Every single day. Together they stood under the stars, no longer just survivors, but a family. Not by force, not by blood, but by love. Forever.